Yes, this is, even though you can't see it, Age-Wise Colorado. It's one of our educational webinars on what to do with your treasures. And I especially can't wait to hear what to do with our photo albums, as I have many trunks full. We're excited to have Heather Nickerson with us. Heather is the founder at Artifacts, and Melissa Foote from Step by Step Photo Organizing is the founder and owner of that business. So it's really nice to have you with us, ladies. We are again Age-Wise Colorado. We're here as a public service to help you find products and services that you need in that aging journey that we're all going through, regardless of our age. But we really focus on older adults and their family members who are the caregivers very often, or helpers for their moms, dads, grandparents. Thank you for turning off your video and muting, because we tend to pick up lots of background noise, and this makes our recording the best possible. We love volunteers, so if anyone needs a little something to do, check our website. We have a whole list of things that you can volunteer for, or as a nonprofit organization, whether it's $5 or 5 million, we should be so lucky. But every donation really helps us keeps the organization going. We're all volunteers, but we are doing as much as we can to reach out to the community and let everyone know we're here and our services are free. If you need anything, you can also call me. Our number is on our website, so we can always help that way. I have posted a brief bio about Heather and Melissa. This will be in the recording, and you can read further. I don't need to read it to anyone. You can read it on your own. And again, you are welcome to visit us any time of the day or night. We actually we kind of consider ourselves a 24/7, 365 resource fair. We have the great articles and, of course, these webinars. And with that, it's enough of me. Let's get to the crux of what we're here for. And Heather, I believe we're going to start off with you. So welcome, Heather Nickerson from Artifacts.
Great. Thank you so much, Barbara, and good afternoon, good morning, depending where you're joining us from today. My name is Heather Nickerson, founder and CEO of Artifacts. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we'll get this presentation started. I think both Melissa and I are very excited to be here today, and we also welcome you to have your questions. Pop them into chat. Use the Q&A function. We're happy to address questions. We will be leaving plenty of time at the end for questions, but if you have a burning question while we go through the presentation, please ask. We are here to help and hopefully provide you some inspiration and some new ideas of what do you do with all your treasures. So I'm going to kick things off. Today, we're talking about what to do with all of our treasures and our photo albums. Today, we're probably looking at something like this. Chances are you, your family, loved ones, we're going to be in the same situation at some point down the road. And it may not be a garage. It could be an attic. It could be a spare bedroom that really is no longer a spare bedroom because it's full of treasures. It could be any combination of those. Maybe it's even a storage unit. But at some point, someone is going to be faced with the reality of having to go through all of our treasures and trying to figure out what on earth any of it is. I know this firsthand because my mother passed away nearly 9 years ago. And as the eldest and only girl, my brothers turned to me and said, "Good luck with that." As I went to close out the estate, don't toss out anything important, and please send us the check when you're done. So my mother was, on the whole, pretty well prepared. She had an estate plan, but what she hadn't done is she hadn't accounted for, in legal terms, tangible assets, which really is a fancy way of saying our treasures, our stuff, our things, our mementos, our keepsakes. On my mother's estate plan, all tangible assets were to be divided equally among myself and my brothers, making it really difficult to, again, figure out what is it, who was supposed to get what, and more importantly, what was the history and the story. Because we all, although we were grieving the loss of our mother, we wanted to honor her memory. And we had all of these things, but they didn't have the story and history. So the goal of today's presentation is to help provide all of you with some tips and tricks for how not to end up in the same situation, whether you're dealing with physical, tangible items, treasures, or maybe photos, digital and physical. So let's take a look at the problem. Why does this matter? Why are we talking about this? Why are you probably here today? If you haven't been following some of the trends and statistics out there, we are currently facing the greatest wealth transfer in the history of our country. The New York Times has cited a study that states nearly $3 trillion of durable goods, aka our treasures, are going to be passed from the boomer generation to Gen X. That's simply a lot of stuff. And the sad thing is, no one is really well prepared how to organize, preserve, and document the treasures, which tends to lead to, over time, lost value. Maybe you end up donating something to Goodwill that actually had significant financial value. We hear about those stories over time. Maybe that lack of preparedness leads to lost wishes. Maybe you know what you want to happen to some of your most cherished items, but your family doesn't know. And in the process of not knowing, they make decisions that may not mirror what decisions you wish they would make. And then also on the practical side, not knowing what these items are and what their value is can lead to underinsurance, which I think Melissa will speak a little bit about later in her presentation. It's really, we need to be prepared because we don't know what happens in life. The Marshall fires were sadly a really good example of how out of the ordinary events can trigger really sad results for families. So why does it matter? So that's the kind of why we're talking about this, but why does it matter to all of us? So there's two main components we're going to get at in today's presentation. We're going to focus on legacy creation and connection. Our treasures tell our story, right? We keep them for a reason. They have memories, they have history. They may or may not have financial value. Chances are our treasures have significant heart value, which means it's those things that matter most to us. But those are all, again, really good physical ways of passing down your legacy, your story, and to help foster intergenerational connection. On the flip side, if you're like, hey, sentiment is great, but I'm not really a sentimental person, that's okay. Let's talk about practical preparedness and documentation. This is critical, again, if you're ever dealing with a loss of an item. It could be from a natural disaster. It could be from theft. It could just be from life happened. The grandkids were over, they were playing ball in the house. You told them 10,000 times not to, and they broke that crystal vase. If it hasn't been documented, it may be harder to replace or to get insurance to cover it. So there's two reasons why it matters: sentimental and then practical, prepare and document. So I want to tee up one of the tools we're going to be talking about today, and one of the techniques we want to empower you all to do after today's session is Swedish death cleaning. Now, hear me out. You may be thinking, what on earth is she talking about? I did not sign up for a webinar on death, and I don't like cleaning. Let's get down to the nuts and bolts of this. Swedish death cleaning does not have to do with like actual death. You can be healthy in your 30s and your 40s and be death cleaning. You could be in your 60s and 70s and death cleaning. There really is no wrong or right age to start. The entire concept about Swedish death cleaning is really, it was made very publicly accessible by Margaret Magnusson, who wrote a book called The Gentle Art of Swedish Death Cleaning. What death cleaning is, it's a Swedish practice of setting your affairs in order. The goal is really to organize and declutter your home to reduce the burden of loved ones. And that burden shows up when they have to sift through the thousands and thousands of objects and decide what do they keep, what do they donate, and what do they sell. Magnusson was a really strong proponent of us living intentionally with our items, with our treasures, and then deciding after we've lived a great life with those items that we love, deciding what happens next with our treasures. And then during our lifetime, being able to pass on not just the treasure, but the story, the reason why it matters. And we'll dive into this a bit more, but that story, that reason why, is a critical component of Swedish death cleaning. Death cleaning is simply not calling, 1-800-GOT-JUNK and having them show up and take out the contents of that spare room or of that overflowing garage. Death cleaning is taking time and truly taking time, being purposeful about it. Maybe it's an hour or two every Sunday afternoon, or it's what you do Tuesday mornings from 8 to 10. But it's taking time and going through the items, going through your treasures, and deciding what happens next. And in doing so, documenting the history, the stories, and the memories, which enables you to, at some point down the road, rehome the treasures or donate or sell them. I want to quickly debunk 2 myths about death cleaning before we dive into kind of the nuts and bolts and we walk through step by step how to do it. Because I suspect some of you may still be wondering, what is she talking about? So, myth number 1, a lot of folks, when they hear the term Swedish death cleaning, think you have to be near death to start. Not true. Again, anyone can death clean. And sometimes the best kind of life events, moving, downsizing, addition of a grandchild to the family, those are all really great times to start the death cleaning process. Another myth may be, no one's going to want my stuff. Are you sure? We hear this all the time. Artifacts. People say, no one wants my stuff. And we say, well, have you told them the story? Have you shared the history? Have you shared why that item, why that treasure matters to you? Oftentimes, we have found over the past nearly 5 years that we've been running Artifacts, we have found that when you share the story and you share the history, but most importantly, you share the why this item matters to you, that treasure is no longer destined for the Goodwill bin. There's typically someone in your family who will now have a newfound appreciation for that item because of what you shared, because of the why it matters to you, or the story behind it, or the history behind it. And I'll give a really quick, great example. So, my mother-in-law had a china set that served 12. She went through all of her children, her 3 boys, including my husband, and asked if anyone wanted that china set. Everyone said no. She then went through essentially the cousins. No one wanted the china set. Having just started Artifacts, I sat down and said, all right, dear Martha, tell me the story behind this china set. And lo and behold, the actual story, was really different than the story that the family thought they knew. Everyone, including my husband, thought the china set was simply a gift that she and her husband got for their marriage. It turns out the china set was actually something she bought when stationed in Liberia in the 1950s. She was part of the US Diplomatic Corps. The US ambassador came to her one day and said, Dear Martha, you have to start hosting diplomatic parties. You need a china set to do so. How do you get a china set in Liberia in the 1950s? Martha was very smart and went about working with the Japanese embassy and commissary to import a china set from Japan. Long story very short, that china set had traveled the world, had been on 3 different continents, dozens of countries, And when the family now actually knew the story behind the china set, there were multiple takers all wanting grandma's china set. So it may not be that your china set has the same story, but I'm willing to bet you all have treasures somewhere in your house that have some pretty remarkable stories and histories. And when you share those stories, you share those histories, that's typically when family and friends would love to help you rehome those items. Again, a big part of the death cleaning process. So let's dive into the basics of death cleaning again. These are the tools that can help you. What do you do with the treasures, right? We all recognize we have them. We all recognize they have either financial value or heart value. But now what do you do with them? So with death cleaning, how you approach this when you're Swedish death cleaning is that the first step is picking an object. You may laugh and say that sounds really simple, but actually it may be the hardest part. People often have pause and think, well, what do I want to start with? So I'm going to encourage you today, don't overthink it. Pick a framed photo, right? That photo's in the frame for a reason. Pick that object and start there. Or pick if you have a favorite travel souvenir, or memento, or piece of jewelry. Those are all great starting points. But pick an object. The most important thing is it has some meaning to you. You then contemplate the object for a moment or two and decide what do you want to happen to it next? Who gets it? Do you want to rehome it to a family member or a friend? Do you want to donate it to charity? Or do you want to tell your family, sell it, reinvest the money, go do something great you want to do with it? I love this object, but you don't have to keep it. Those are all really good decisions that can help your family tackle what may be a mountain of treasures at some point down the road. And then once you decide what the object is, who's going to get it, this is where you get to do the fun stuff. Add the details. Add a story or a favorite memory. Why does it matter to you? Why have you kept it all this time? What's special about it? Those are all great starting points. The beautiful thing about Swedish death cleaning is as you go through your treasures, you will see that memories beget more memories. So give yourself time and space to share those memories and share those stories. So I wanted to share 3 examples from just my own household, hopefully to make you laugh, but you can see where I think death cleaning can really help here. So these are 3 items. The glasses. Um, the funny thing is you may look at these glasses and be like, wow, those are really nice glasses. I'll let you in on a secret. They're a dime a dozen. There's nothing special about them. If I were no longer here, my daughter would not be obliged to keep those glasses. And in death cleaning, I can let her know. I can say, dear daughter, I love these glasses. I think they're beautiful, but they have no meaning to me other than I like them and I use them every day. You're free to part with them. The second tile, the earrings, these were part of my mother's estate. So why did it matter to her? This is what I wish I had. I wish I knew my mother's stories and I wish I knew the history behind them. I ended up keeping a number of items from my mother's estate because they had financial value. But what's missing is the heart value. I don't know why they mattered to her, and I really wish I did. So even if you gave yourself one treasure a week or one treasure a month, think about the stories and histories that would get passed down or at least documented for the next generation. And then the last item, the photo of the old beat up cookbook. My daughter always laughs at this. If you were to ask me the most prized possession I have from my mother, my most favorite treasure of hers are her old cookbooks. Some are so well loved, they don't even meet standards for donation to Goodwill or other organizations. They'd end up in the trash bin. But I save them from the trash bin because I love them and I have memories of my mother with these cookbooks. And I've documented those stories and memories and I've shared them with my daughter. So my daughter now knows when I'm no longer here, those cookbooks remain a part of our family history, our family heritage. So we were thinking about how do you death clean? You can start with pen and paper. The only downside is it may be hard to share with others. If you want to take it up a notch, you can use an inventory app. The downside of that, though, may be that you can't fully share a story. Most inventory apps have really small fields, if any fields at all, to add a story or to add history or to add memories. I will admit being fully biased since I am the founder of Artifacts, but we built Artifacts to really help you capture, preserve, and share What matters most to you? Be it the story, the history, the memory, maybe it's the value of the object. And with Artifacts, because it is a digital platform, it's easy to share. You can go back and edit and add to the story again and again. And it also allows you to create a roadmap for your family of what happens next. You can actually print out a roadmap. What did they sell? What do they keep? What do they donate? And who gets what? Um, so again, you can check out Artifacts if you're interested at all in using that as a way to help you death clean, to help you document the stories and the histories behind your treasures. Um, there is no obligation to do so. Paper and pen works just as well as well. If you are using Artifacts or other technology-enabled apps, it's important to note that make sure you have your legacy contact filled out. With Artifacts, we give you not just one, but two. But that way you ensure that whatever you create online, regardless of the program that you use, your next, whoever it happens to be, family, friend, but what you create is not lost in cyberspace. It's inherited and passed down, just like your tangible assets, just like those treasures. So with that, I'm going to stop here, stop sharing my screen, and turn it over to Melissa to take us through what to do with those photo albums.
Okay, well, I'm going to jump into photos. And as Barbara said in my bio, just so you know a little bit about me, I was a classroom teacher for almost 20 years. And back in 2020, I had been helping my mom with her photos. The whole digital age in the early 2000s threw a lot of people for a loop who aren't in love with technology, easily frustrated with technology. And so I just started helping my mom with her photos. And as we shared what we were doing, I realized there was an entire generation of people who needed help with photos. So I started my business, Step by Step Photo Organization. And since then, I've been teaching classes, mostly in retirement communities, but also in libraries and for cities and towns. And I just love pictures so much and want to help people preserve and protect theirs any way I can. So, as you all know, our photo albums, printed pictures hold decades of memories and family stories. And for a lot of us, most of our life was documented in these printed photos. And it really wasn't until the last 20 years that everything went digital, which doesn't mean that our old pictures aren't just as important. And so while we have hundreds, oftentimes thousands of pictures, oftentimes they end up in buckets and photo boxes, albums, frames, and even those envelopes we used to get from King Soopers and Walgreens, just filled with thousands of our pictures. And, we put them in our basement and assume that they're safe down there or that we'll get to them someday. But for a lot of people, especially that I've worked with in the last 5 years, they've been sitting in their basement for decades. And I don't know if any of you can relate, but it seems like this is a huge weight for a lot of people that they want to take care of their pictures. So I just, hold on. I think it's really important that we take the time to go through our pictures, whether it's so that we can pass them down to the next generation or even just start sorting them. Oftentimes, these are the only copies of these photos and family stories. And if we don't do it, sadly, I don't think our kids and grandkids are going to do it either. So it's kind of up to us. And I think you'll be surprised at how easy it can be with some simple steps. So here are some of the things I hear in my classes. I don't know if you guys can use the chat tool. It would be great if you either write if you can relate or maybe another reason, but people often don't go through their pictures or haven't made time yet because they really just don't even know how or where to start. A lot of times people think this is going to be this huge project and they just don't have time. And so they keep putting it off. Kind of like Heather was saying for artifacts, sometimes people don't even think their kids or grandkids are going to want their pictures, which I'm also going to debunk because, as you all know, there's a multi-million-dollar industry surrounding genealogy. And so even if your kids don't want them, your grandkids might. And it is very time consuming for people to go back and find family history if it's not just saved and passed down. So, and even if your kids are busy raising their families right now. Someday they're going to want pictures. I think oftentimes you don't realize you need pictures until there's a big life event like a wedding or a funeral, a memorial service. Those are times where people, it's like the first thing we do is get out photos. And so it's a gift to already have a stash that you can pass down. A lot of people might be the gatekeeper of the family photos. And so they feel a lot of pressure because they're the only ones with the only copies of mom, dad, grandma's photos. And so they just aren't sure what to do with them, but it's been kind of weighing on them. And so they really want to get to them, but they just don't know what to do. And, just the overwhelm and that we'll do it someday when we have time, which I don't know how many of you have been waiting for that day, but it never seems to come. So I think it's just one of those things we need to make it a priority. And in the similar fashion of Heather with, artifacts and memorabilia, it's even if you just in small doses, one photo album a week or one photo album a month, just start somewhere because that's better than not starting at all. All right, so I'm going to give you a few simple ideas. And at the very end, I have a handout you can just download so you don't have to physically take notes unless you are a note taker and want to. But know that everything I'm going to cover, you're welcome to print out the handout or have it emailed to you at the end. So for starters, I would say this is probably the easiest way if you feel overwhelmed is to just get out your old pictures. Get out photo albums, an envelope, and even just sit side by side with your loved ones and share oral stories of what the photos are about, or even give them the opportunity to share theirs. Sometimes it doesn't have to be complicated. It could just be getting out photos and talking about what the story is behind them. I think often I work with clients, even like Heather said with the Tiffany earrings in her presentation. It's like sometimes people wish they would have heard the stories before their loved ones are gone. So spending time, even just listening to stories, is such a gift to you and to them so that you can have this information someday if your loved ones aren't here anymore. And if you are the one, that has the older photos, maybe just passing on these stories to your kids and grandkids is a huge gift that you wouldn't, assume, but it really is. As you're going through old photos or photo albums, you can even take pictures with your phone of the best copies. And so then there's a digital copy of them. Because as you start going through photo albums, you might realize, 20% of the pictures are really cherished memories. And maybe the rest are great pictures, but not as touching. And so by taking pictures of your photos, at least you now have a digital copy just in case you don't remember which photo album it was in, or they get, thrown back in the box or tub. And this can help you make sure that you keep them on hand so that as time goes on and you keep going through photos, you have those, the best of the best copies on your phone. Getting out old pictures and photo albums too, one of the other tips I would suggest is that as you go through, say you pick one photo album this week, and as you go through it, you can throw away duplicates or blurry copies. If you feel like pictures need to go to certain people, I see this all the time. I'll help people go through photos and they're like, oh, this needs to go to my sister, or my brother or my cousin or whatever. And so maybe you start making piles that then you can share them with your family, especially if you're the only one who has the hard copies of these photos. And feel free to put anything in the chat. I'm used to teaching classes in person or at least seeing people on Zoom. So please feel free to jump in if you have comments, questions, things that you're already doing. All right, another tip with your photos, especially your printed pictures, is you can actually scan your pictures right from your phone. We used to have old scanners and, scanners can be expensive. Nowadays, they're upwards of $500, and then it's just another piece of equipment you have to store in your house or your office. Oftentimes, those old scanners, you would scan your photos, but then they have to be uploaded or downloaded to a hard drive or to a flash drive, and a lot of extra steps were involved. There's an app called Photo Scan by Google. It looks just like this, and it's totally free. It doesn't matter what type of phone you have. So if you're an iPhone user, it works. If you're a Samsung user, Android, whatever you have, this app works on every device. It does have to be on a phone. So just food for thought, this won't work from a computer. But this app is really amazing. It's a great tool to scan your photos. And of course, like anything, it takes a minute to learn, but it will digitize your pictures without you having to crop your photos. For example, if you take a picture of a picture, it often has the background like the table or the desk. This app only scans the photo. So once you've scanned it, the only thing you're going to see on your phone is an actual copy of that photo or the picture. It also works to take the glare out of the photo, and it uploads the new digital copy right to Apple or Google Photos for you. So there's no extra step involved. It uploads right to the photo app that's already built in on your phone. So I teach a class that I've taught for 5 years now on how to use this app. It's also very intuitive. If you have a family member who can help you with it, or if you're, savvy, you can absolutely figure it out on your own. But this QR code, if you take a picture of it, is my online class that will just walk you through how to use it, some tips and tricks. But know that if you are interested in this app, you can probably take some time and figure it out on your own as well. And so once the pictures are digitized, then you can upload them or you can organize them into albums in your phone. And that makes it really great because then you can easily share them with your friends and family. Also, having digital copies, kind of like Heather was talking about, a lot of people lose very, very valuable items like pictures when there's fires or floods. Sadly, we see every year it feels like more and more extreme weather is impacting families and communities across our country. And often people say they wish they would have grabbed their photos on the way out because that was the only copy. So this also is kind of a solution for that, because if you have a digital copy, even if sadly your physical photos were lost, at least you would still have copies of some of your favorites. So this is kind of a overview of using this app, but if you want to go down this path, I would also recommend that you only scan about 20% of your photos, because at the end of the day, a lot of our collections of pictures include doubles, triples. Do you remember back in the day, we'd take our little film to get developed at a store, and we, for some reason, would think it's a great idea to get triples or doubles. So when I work with people, they can't even believe how many pictures they don't really need to keep that they've been storing for decades. So I would just scan the best of the best and not set yourself up to think that you're going to scan, the thousands and thousands of pictures you have. The goal really is to just have the best ones that share or bring up the most memories for you, because those are the ones you're going to want to pass down. Our kids and grandkids aren't going to want our 10,000 photos, but they will want some of the best. So just keep that in mind as you start tackling your printed pictures. You really need to look at it through the lens of, I don't need to do everything, just the best. And kind of to piggyback on that scanning app, whether it's you've scanned a printed picture or maybe you just have, I don't know, I think we've been taking pictures for 20 years now. A lot of people I work with have, 10,000, 20,000 pictures just from taking them on their phone. And so sometimes it can be really helpful. If you have a clutter of pictures on your phone, you can create albums right from your phone in your app that's built in. So if you're an iPhone user, Apple Photos is built into your phone. And if you don't have an iPhone, most other phones have Google Photos. And it's pretty easy. You can just go in and create an album, have your kids and grandkids help you. They do this with their eyes closed, and put your favorite pictures in an album. And it just helps you have quick and easy access to your favorite photos from a few clicks, wherever you are, anytime you want to access them, versus, the olden days we had our physical pictures and frames and tubs at home. Now we carry our photos around with us everywhere we go. And so a lot of times I think people want to share pictures of their grandkids or the great vacation they went on or something, their new puppy did. And so if you create an album on your phone with just the favorite, the best of the best. It's such a quick and easy way to find those photos if you ever want to share them. And also, I'm sure you've all done this before where you have your phone and you're like, let me show you this picture. And then you're scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and your picture's in there somewhere, but you can't seem to find it. This is the solution to that. Having it in an album just makes it so that once you get the hang of it, you can just open your phone app and go to your favorite album and your picture is right there. So that's another great tip if you have photos that are just a mess on your phone. All right, digital frames. This applies to old printed pictures or to new digital ones. Digital frames, and I don't know if anybody has one, feel free to write in the chat if you have one, use one, but this is an amazing way to have multiple pictures show up. So if, say you have a digital frame in your living room or kitchen, it constantly scrolls through your favorite photos for you. And so it just brings so much connection to your loved ones and joy into your home without you having to do anything. You just plug it in, turn it on, and it can scroll through either newly scanned photos. Maybe you got out a photo album and scanned some of your favorite oldies but goodies, and now you add them into the rotation of pictures that will scroll on your digital frame. Or maybe you just have recent pictures of your kids or grandkids that can also be in the loop. Digital frames are pretty easy to use. They will require you to download an app, which is how you can choose which pictures can start scrolling into your frame. Another great benefit is that if your kids or grandkids don't live near you, they can also download the app and they can actually send pictures through their app into your frame in real time. So if there's a fun event that you happen to miss, they can add that photo and it'll show up right in your kitchen or living room without you having to do anything. And one of the best things about today is yesterday and today were Amazon Prime days. And so they actually have a ton of great deals right now on digital frames. So if you are an Amazon member, you can go onto your app and just type in digital frames and it should pull up. I mean, there were probably at least a couple dozen yesterday, and frames were anywhere from 40 to 60% off. So these can also be a really great gift. So if you have parents or grandparents, and maybe you're trying to think of something clever that's not just more stuff for Christmas, this could be a great gift idea. And now's the great time to buy because they're having such great deals with Amazon Prime days. And photo books. A lot of people, especially seniors, prefer tangible photos. If technology seems to be a challenge, people really do still like having their physical photos to look through pictures. And so photo books are a great way you can help your loved ones or even do this yourself to get some of those, best of the best photos. Say you have 10 old photo albums, and over the next couple weeks you go through them and you scan just your favorites. You can take the favorites from all of those photo albums and just put them in one new photo album so that you have just your favorites in one spot. The other thing about these newer photo books compared to our old photo albums is, our old photo albums used to be really thick and chunky and take up a ton of space. And new photo books, that have been developed and created in the last, decade or two, they're really slim and really clean. And so you can take some of your old photos. Maybe you have a stack of old pictures that are falling apart and you digitize them. You can put them into a photo book. And then that way they're a lot easier to look at and see all in one space. And it just makes it easier. A lot of the seniors I work with would way rather have a photo book on their coffee table to share with their friends and families when they come over for Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever it may be, than to have to get out their phone and have everybody sit around and try to look at pictures from their, latest trip or whatever. So photo books today are a great way to kind of get some of your old photos condensed and then reprinted all in one space. And my favorite photo book site is called Mixbook down here in my slide at the bottom. It's really user friendly. And they even have an option that if you upload the pictures you want to add to a photo book, they'll actually drop them in the photo book. You pick a template, they'll just drop them in for you. So if you don't have the patience to deal with it, it'll actually just take your photos and create a photo book for you. And it might not be perfect and exactly what you want, but it's a great solution to just get it done. So photo books are a great option. And that's it for me. So if you want some of the notes, feel free to scan this QR code. You'll just get the little handout that is basically my slides in a handout so that you can have them on hand if you want to explore any of those options. But thanks, Barbara, for having me. I love photos so much and love sharing and helping people as best I can with whatever their photo needs are. And I hope to encourage some of you to start tackling your pictures because I really promise you, I've seen it sadly. If you don't go through your pictures, your family might not. And sometimes I see things get thrown out. It's just heartbreaking. So you may as well pick the ones you want to hand down before it's too late. So
Do we have
hand it
any
back to you.
questions from anyone? I've got a question for you, Melissa. What if you're not real good with your phone or it's taking up a lot of space? What do you suggest a person do?
So if you're not really feeling confident in using your phone, I would suggest a couple things. One, people like me, I'm a photo organizer. There's a million of us. And I think you could hire a photo organizer to come in and help you. Also, I think this is a really fun project to do with your kids and grandkids. They, as you guys probably all know, they don't even have to like take 2 seconds to learn something new with technology. They download a new app and they have it figured out. And so I think this could be something you could do with your loved ones and say, here's one photo album in October. I need help. We're going to go through and scan these, and they could probably do it for you. And as far as space, so because we've had digital pictures for about 20 years, I think most of us are running out of the free storage that we were given back then. And so most of us by now are probably paying, $1.99 or $2.99 a month for more storage on our phones. And so I think that as you scan printed pictures and now you have digital copies, it will add to your storage. But I think that as we keep taking more and more pictures, we're all going to need new, we're all going to need to pay for a little bit more storage anyway. And when it comes down to these are the only copies of your family memories, I think it's well worth the $1.99 it might cost you to start storing these. So I hope that answers your questions.
It does. We have a couple other questions. What do you do with old albums after digitizing the best photos?
So I think it's great to have backups. So if you start digitizing your old photo albums, and as you're going, you're sorting, maybe you're getting rid of some pictures you don't really need anymore. And instead of keeping them in a photo album, maybe you're starting to put some of those pictures into envelopes or something that takes up a little less space. But I would still recommend keeping your favorite printed pictures, at least just to have an extra copy of them. So that you have a digital copy and a printed copy. But as you start going through your pictures, I would definitely suggest paring down and getting rid of ones that you don't really need anymore. But keep the best of the best in a printed version still.
And do you just throw out into the trash the old albums then? They're not
Sadly,
recyclable.
no, photos sadly have a film on them that makes them unable to be recycled. And if your photo albums are in good shape, there's a lot of actually like people who love vintage and things. So if sometimes you can find places to donate, like even at Goodwill, people eat that stuff up. So you don't actually have to throw the photo album itself in the trash, unless it's the one with the sticky pages. Sometimes once you pull the pages, you've destroyed them because they can't go back. So some of them, yes, you probably will end up throwing away.
Let's see. Oh, Heather, why don't you tell us about this? What you wrote in the chat.
Oh, I was just giving folks a reference. We wrote last year in partnership with the photo managers a blog article, what you should do with old photo albums. We have a bunch of kind of tips in there, a lot of what Melissa was saying. For us, if you're choosing to use a technology platform like Artifacts, it's a great way you can actually artifact the old photo album and include an audio of you narrating as you flip through it, or include a video of you flipping through it. Um, there's also a lot of, like Melissa was saying, you can donate those vintage photos. That's a great way. Um, so there's a lot of tips in there. I won't go through everything in the article. But when you think about digitization of it, consider the layout. And Melissa was talking about, like, don't digitize every photo, but maybe there's a collage of photos, or there's some way you can recreate something meaningful out of the album. So we kind of approach it from look at it from the photo level, the album level, but also kind of the event or the moment in history level. So
And Heather, would you suggest that maybe when you're going through and identifying your treasures and telling the story, do you take a picture of it and attach that so there's no confusion about this thing or that thing and who you want it to go to?
yeah, so depending on how you're doing this, if you're simply using pen and paper, you can just write down what the item is. If you are going to be, again, if you think of technology as a spectrum, let's stick with pen and paper, and then there's all the way up to something like Artifacts, a complete platform. Somewhere in the middle, maybe there is a photo. Maybe you also include an audio file, so you have your voice and the photo of the item, and you're telling the story. I think a lot of folks after the fact, they're like, wow, I really wish I had, my parents' voice or grandma and grandpa's voice. I don't underestimate, like we have this amazing tool here in our pockets, probably like every single day. Don't underestimate this. There's a ton of free software out there to record an audio, take a photo, pair them together. Some folks maybe use a Google spreadsheet. If you're a Google person, you can upload a photo into Google Drive, link to it in a Google Sheet or a Google Doc, tell the story, like write out the story there. But definitely, if you're comfortable using technology, I think the more detail and the more, like, again, audio visual you're able to provide your family, that's when it takes on a whole new significance now, because they now know it's not only was it one of your treasures, but this is why it was a treasure. And part of the treasure for them now is having your voice or having a video snippet of you talking about it or wearing it or using it or whatever it happens to be.
Ladies, thank you so much. This was so informative, and I wish I didn't have to go back to work. I'd be working on my things. But I hope you all enjoyed it and got something out of it. And we will be posting the recording. Usually it takes about a week. And again, I just want to thank you and wish you all a very pleasant day.
Mhm. Hey, Barbara, may I give everyone a
Yeah,
homework assignment before they go?
sure.
So we've got the holidays coming up, right? I would challenge everyone, pick one item, be it a photo, be it a photo album, be it a treasure. Pick one item for the next week, all the way up until the end of the year. If you do that, you're going to have a beautiful collection of about a dozen items that all have stories and history. And if you end up traveling or you're having family over for the holidays, take a moment and share that with everyone. But if you think of it just one item a week for the next 12 weeks, you're going to have a beautiful collection of your treasures that have a lot of meaning to your family. So I challenge everyone, don't wait for, the perfect timing. Like, get started today.
Yeah, there is no perfect time, is there? And that's a great idea. Thank you for that challenge. It'll get us all going. All right, everyone, have a great afternoon, and we'll see you next time.